Oh, it just keeps getting worse for Pluto, doesn't it? Give it another 50 years and we'll probably just see it as little more than a space potato. Honestly, if it was a potato, that'd be kind of amazing, because it'd be like, yeah, there's life out there. It's actually a potato. It'd be like, maybe we need to reconsider the Bible, because I mean, that's some crazy shit, but that's real. The space potato. Just before we get started with today's video, I do want to say that it's brought to you by Surfshark. Yes, more on them in a bit. Hello, and welcome back to another episode of Brain Blaze. This one, Cosmonauts and Angels, the best space conspiracy theories. And oh boy, when we start talking about space, people are always like, doesn't happen or it happens too much. It's like, we didn't land on the moon, but there are definitely aliens.
I may be an idiot, but I'm not stupid.
It's like, all right, guys, just chill. Like, make up your mind. Why can't... It's just... Sometimes it's just call it like it is. Yeah, we landed on the moon. No, there aren't aliens. I mean, of course there are aliens. They're just not crash landing on our planet. They're just like, they didn't give a about us. I made this analogy recently, but it's like, yo, aliens, they care about us as much, if they're out there and even aware of us, they care about us as much as you do about the ant's nest that you walk past. You're on a long walk in the forest and there's a termite nest or an ant's nest. You're like, oh, look, ants. And that's it. You don't give a shit because you're like, they're ants. The spacefaring civilization that is passing by us is so advanced. They're just like, oh, okay. They don't give a We'd find it the most fascinating thing ever, but they don't give a
Hello, Earthling. I am an alien from another planet. While you are looking at my face, I am rubbing my testicles and making love.
You what?
While I'm here, Danny writes it, I shall read it. Sam's gonna sprinkle in some of the finest vintage memes that you've ever seen. Yeah, he is. Let's go. I wonder how long it will take mankind to reach the point where we feel that we can pretty much understand everything there is to know about outer space forever, Danny. Isn't it infinite? It's going to take infinitely long because there's always going to be more to discover. Considering that Captain Picard was still referring to space as the final frontier in the 24th century, I suspect we have a little while to go before we no longer regard space as the last uncharted wilderness. It is so big, it is always going to be the last uncharted wilderness. Because can you imagine? It's like, yes, space. Okay. Well, we've explored a bunch of it, then we find another entire planet to explore. So that's going to take a while. We still haven't cracked... I feel like there's parts of the Amazon we haven't been to, deep in the ocean we haven't been to, let alone the deep oceans and forests on other planets. Right? It's crazy. We've obviously made many magnificent achievements in recent history. We've plonked men on the moon, even if we haven't really left the outskirts of Earth since 1972. We've sent probes and telescopes and Raid Shadow Legends marketing material into the stars. Oh my god. Raid! Like, they still email me. They still email. I still get an email maybe every other week from a marketing rep at Raid Shadow. Oh my god. I think I'm allergic to that shit. Legends marketing material in the stars, but an incredibly popular and beloved billionaire went for a quick joyride in a rocket shaped like a dick. How crazy is it? I just read in the news that the guy who went up with William Shatner on Jeff Bezos' rocket, there were 4 of them, one of them just died in a plane crash. It's like, holy shit. I mean, 1, it's sad you died in a plane crash, but 2, your life must be crazy. Like, what are you up to? Like, a month ago, you're like flying into space, and it was his own plane. He's flying his own plane. And he crashes them. Like, your life must be super interesting. Just to be like going into space, flying around on your own plane. I mean, that's just like, don't you have work to do? How do you afford to go into space? And then I read about it. He sold a company for like $1 billion or something. I'm like, oh, now I see.
I'm rich.
We've obviously made many a magnificent I read that already. But there's still so many secrets to uncover. We still don't know if intelligent life exists outside Earth. We don't even know if any life exists outside Earth. We don't understand the exact nature of the dark matter, which accounts for 85% of the universe. Oh, we're f***ed, aren't we? And we haven't the foggiest clue as to how big the universe is even meant to be. I don't even think we'll really be able to say that we've completely cracked the space malarkey until we've seen a branch attacker bellow for business on every single planet in the distant constellation of Theranos. But what a journey of enlightenment it shall be. And it's fascinating to speculate that just every bold new discovery that we make and every thrilling new celestial secret we unlocked will only throw up 1,000 new conspiracy theories that we're just getting conned by a capacious collection of cosmic cock and bull. The human race has much to look forward to, so much to learn, and so much to angrily dismiss as fake news.
You are fake news. Sir.
There's so many contradictions. Like, I feel like the fake news people are the same people as the conspiracy people. And it's like, but they're making up their own fake news, like we didn't land on the moon. That is fake news, and you say you're against fake news? I don't understand. What? Actually, wait. Nah, they're the same people, aren't they? That makes perfect sense. What are you talking about, Facts Boy? Why are you so small-brained? But before we reach this pinnacle of astronomical enlightenment and accusatory denunciation, Daddy, what's with all the like $20 words today? Or whatever the phrase is, you know, where it's like, oh my god, why is this so big? Why are they so big? I don't know what those mean. Here's a taster for what we have to deal with now. The Lost Cosmonauts. Oh, I've got a video coming up about this on my Decoding the Unknown channel. It's a new podcast channel I'm doing, where we look at mysteries and like the loads of conspiracy theories about them and shit all over them, because everyone knows how much I hate that bullshit.
I am going to remind you in advance that I'm very sorry and I apologize for the inconvenience of me not keeping up.
Although the recent space adventures of Richard Branson and Jeff Bezos have often been dismissed as a pissing contest between two childish billionaires, you could pretty much say the same thing about the space race between the US and the Soviet Union. From 1955 to 1972, the communists and the capitalists locked horns in a fierce battle to prove their technological superiority, and a massively expensive race to become the first to hit all the historical milestones began. The Americans may have been the first to put a man on the moon in 1969. Prior to this, the Soviets clearly had the upper hand. Amongst many other things, they had been the first to pass the post when it came to killing a dog by sending it into space, and the first person to perform a funky spacewalk. Until the Soviets finally killed a dog in space. That was like the big goal that everyone was going for. Like the Americans were like, nah, we will be the first ones to kill a dog in space. We shall prevail.
Russian dog.
And the Soviets were like, joke's on you, comrade. We already killed many dogs in space. We take from streets of Russia, launch them into space for death. I have no idea what I'm doing.
Get some help.
Perhaps more significantly, in 1961, cosmonaut Yuri Gagarin became the first ever human to take an epic journey into outer space. Or did he? Would it be more accurate to say that Yuri Gagarin was actually just the first human to survive the journey into space, and that he had been following the footsteps of several doomed cosmonauts who tragically never made it back home from a long chain of disasters that were hushed up by the Soviet Union? And we kind of know this not to be true, and I'm going to spoil it here because I literally made an episode about this last week. But it was like we basically arrived at the conclusion of like, no, we know that there wasn't anyone before, because as soon as Yuri Gagarin got to space and was in space, the Soviet Union were basically like, in your face, America! If they'd done that before, and the one about them being in space was they're killed on like re-entry and shit, it'd be like, well, yeah, okay, they'd have bragged about it, and then it would be embarrassing because their astronauts, so their cosmonauts would have died. So, spoiler alert, it's bullshit. Surprise, surprise. The Italian amateur radio operators Achille and Giovanni Giudice Cordigli reckons that they'd stumbled across some quite disturbing audio evidence which proved Gagarin wasn't at the front of the queue after all. In the late 1950s, the two brothers set up an experimental listening station just outside Turin in Italy to eavesdrop on any potential communication transmission between spacecraft and ground control on missions launched by both the US and the Soviet Union. This was no professional setup, as the listening station made use of scavenged and improvised gear, and there was no ulterior motive at work other than scientific interest and innocent curiosity. In 1957, they had managed to record sounds taken from Like the Dog's journey to Rainbow Bridge. In the following year, they recorded a few exciting bleeps emitted from America's first satellite, Explorer 1. But between 1960 and 1964, the Giudice brothers made 9 different recordings of a far more distressing nature. And they're fake. They basically turn out to be fake, because they're like getting they're speaking in Russian, but they're getting the grammar and wrong, and it's like, it's fake. This is fake. Come on.
Сука, 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 блядь, сука, 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 блядь, сука, 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 блядь, сука, 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 блядь.
Come on, let's stop being silly.
Okay.
An observatory in West Germany revealed in 1960 that they had intercepted a few satellite signals, which surprised everybody as no official announcement had been made about any new launch from either side of the space race. The brothers were intrigued enough to spend a day in the listening room, but in the listening station, but initially they heard nothing more than static. However, just as they were on the verge of giving up, they picked up a rhythmic pattern which they soon identified as Morse code, and it sounded crushingly familiar. It was an SOS signal, not something you'd expect to hear from an unmanned object. The signal grew fainter as it moved further away from the Earth, before it fell completely silent. A year later, in 1961, the brothers picked up a transmission from what they believed to be an orbiting capsule, but hidden amongst the crackling static were some alarming noises. The sound of a heartbeat, the sound of strained breathing and pained moaning, quite possibly the sound of a lost cosmonaut suffocating to death while adrift in space. That's got to be one of the most terrifying ways to go. It's like, yeah, so it turns out, Yuri, that you're not going to make it back. And it's like, oh, yeah, you've broken free of the Earth's orbit and you're just going to drift into space. You'll be dead in a few days when you run out of air. And then what happens? Well, your body will freeze and your spacecraft will just continue flying extremely fast for the rest of time. Oh my god, I think I'm still allergic to that Raid Shadow Legends. Woo! Shit. Wow. That's... Oh my god. Woo, that was a good one. Ah. Oh. God damn. Oh. Okay. We're back.
God, I love cocaine so much. Holy fuck knuckles, I am high as a kite right now. Okay.
Yeah, and his spacecraft just continues going forever until it's like sucked into a sun or crashes on an alien planet and his body gets destroyed, or just gets sucked into a black hole and he gets brought back to life because time is reversed in black holes or something like that. I don't know. I got confused by Interstellar. I mean, obviously not. It's just a big, heavy object.
The flow of time itself is convoluted.
A leading cardiologist at the time confirmed that the recording included the final heartbeats of a dying man. Later the same year, the brothers intercepted a Russian voice which appeared to convey a resignation to fate. The voice says, "Conditions growing worse. Why don't you answer? We are going slower. The world will never know about us." And perhaps the most haunting recording of all was taken in 1963, when over the course of a few minutes, we hear the panicked cries of a female cosmonaut who appears to be experiencing difficulty while attempting re-entry. Translated from Russian, not every word is clear, and the voice seems chillingly disorientated. But we can hear the cosmonaut crying out, "Talk to me! I'm hot! Isn't this dangerous? How shall I transmit? I can see a flame! Am I going to crash?" I feel hot. The Soviet Union strongly denied that these recordings were genuine, but it's worth noting that they had a long history of covering up space disasters, presumably to protect their credibility. Presumably. Obviously. Unlike NASA, who always gave advance notice of planned missions, the Soviets only tended to make the announcement after a mission had been successfully completed, leading to speculation that they may have managed to keep things quiet had they gone horribly wrong. A massive launch pad catastrophe at Baikonur Test Range in 1960 is known to have claimed around 80 lives, but the Soviets suppressed the story, and it didn't even officially be acknowledged until 1989. They kept that 80 people dying basically for 3 decades. Completely quiet. It's kind of amazing what the Soviet Union could keep quiet.
Name? Address? Gender? What is this, Soviet Russia?
And it's been revealed that several team photographs of cosmonauts from the 1970s have been doctored before they were published to completely remove certain individuals from the pictures. In the days before Photoshop, this would have been a painstaking operation, and it makes you wonder why they bothered to do it. Could it be that they were trying to airbrush fatal disasters from the history books by removing any trace of the victims? Maybe not, as some of the missing cosmonauts have since been tracked down and were found to be alive and well. But not all of them. I don't think that means that if some of them who were photoshopped out can be found alive and well, it doesn't mean that the other ones who were photoshopped out are not alive and well. In fact, it just means, I don't know, they probably disappeared. Maybe they went off to the Gulag for a different reason. Who knows? It was the Soviet Union. So, were these 9 recordings from the brothers just lifting the lid on another grisly Soviet cover-up? People who met the brothers in later life found this to be unlikely, as they were both so purely driven by science and technology that they didn't seem to have the capacity to make stuff up for shits and giggles. But there are definitely a few pointers to suggest that the recordings were not genuine. For starters, the doomed cosmonauts didn't appear to be speaking grammatically correct Russian. Yeah, and they would be, because they're Russian. They also didn't appear to be following any standard communication protocols or using correct terminology. And although some of the cosmonauts make reference to leaving Earth's orbit, the Soviets simply didn't have the technology at the time to send cosmonauts into deep space. Perhaps the biggest clue, though, is the fact that none of these recordings were ever picked up by any of the other numerous radio tracking stations which were around at the time, most of which were far more sophisticated than the rudimentary effort knocked up by the Judicucutic brothers. I just started saying brothers and then I accidentally read their name. My bad. Because I don't know how to pronounce it and I don't want to look it up because I can't be bothered. Because that's the sort of high-effort YouTuber I am.
Great job.
So, it's not clear what exactly the brothers were playing at. They didn't appear to have the humour or inclination to play a practical joke or pull off a hoax. Maybe they were the ones being pranked, or maybe the recordings are entirely genuine. Regardless of the authenticity, signing up to be a cosmonaut never liked, seemed... Oh my god, what the f***?
What the f***? Wikipedia.
Signing up to be a cosmonaut never seemed like a smart idea back in those days, even though the officially recognized first man in space, Yuri Gagarin, enjoyed a few years being a national hero. His ultimate reward was to be banned from further space flights as the Soviets wanted to avoid killing such a high-profile celebrity figure. He was downgraded to flying regular aircraft and was killed in 1968 while piloting a MiG-15 training jet that crashed. At least he got a few more years of fame out of it than Laika, the communist space dog. I feel like Laika the communist space dog with a face would make a great picture. Like in Soviet style, like a t-shirt, I mean. That'd be cool. Laika the communist space dog. Also sounds like a great cartoon. I'd watch that. Before we continue with today's video, let me give a quick shout out, a small word, a quick interruption from our friends over at Surfshark. Yes, what is Surfshark? Well, look, it's something you should be using if you use the internet, and guess what? You use the internet. You're on the internet right now, aren't you? Aren't you? Unless you downloaded this previously and you're watching it on a plane or something, in which case, well, you're not. But you should still get Surfshark. The internet's a weird place. There are people out there, they want to ruin your day, they want to take your details, steal your identity. Oh no. Don't let that happen to you. It's a pain in the ass. Surfshark has HackLock, it searches database for your passwords, which honestly sounds pretty bad. But no, Surfshark are the good guys. They let you know if someone's stolen your details and boom, get you back to safety. And when you are feeling all safe, maybe you're like, ooh, I'm gonna sit on the couch and watch some Netflix. But then you realize, oh my god, I don't have all of the Netflix that I could get because of geo restrictions and locked areas and all sorts of legal stuff that I do not understand. But Surfshark, they're there to save you. You turn on Surfshark, you're like, oh, where would you like to be today? Somewhere with a different Netflix library, perhaps the UK, the United States, Japan! Who knows? You fire up Surfshark, you click it, and then you refresh, and boom, your Netflix has got a whole lot more stuff. And it doesn't just work for Netflix. Just name a streaming service and there you go. Huzzah! Also, of course, it's totally unlimited, so you can watch all of the shows you want, browse everything nice and safely, no worries there. And also, they don't keep any logs, obviously. Because that's the point is it's private. They don't have logs because they respect your privacy. You can get 83% off and 4 months for free through the link in the description below, or just use my promo code BLAZE. Fantastic. And now back to today's video. The Pluto Truthers. We're all probably more than familiar with the Moon Truthers, but there's another equally fanatical bunch of people out there called the Pluto Truthers. They don't usually recognize or accept that term, as they find it mocking and disrespectful. Excellent. And that's therefore why we shall be using it today, because I'm mocking you and being disrespectful towards you. You're welcome? But anyway, these Pluto truthers are convinced that NASA has consistently misled us about Pluto over the years in a conspiracy which is believed by some to be the biggest lie in history. Uh-oh. I suppose it doesn't help matters that we keep changing our minds about what Pluto is even meant to be. Although it was originally identified as a planet when it was discovered in 1930, it suffered the indignity of being downgraded to a dwarf planet in 2006, and now there are even suggestions that it might be more of a giant comet. Oh, it just keeps getting worse for Pluto, doesn't it? Give it another 50 years and we'll probably just see it as little more than a space potato. Honestly, if it was a potato, that'd be kind of amazing, because it'd be like, yeah, there's life out there. It's actually a potato. They'd be like, maybe we need to reconsider the Bible, because I mean, that's some crazy shit, but that's real. The space potato. But Pluto has always been one of the more mysterious objects in our solar system, as it's proven very difficult to get a proper nosy at it. And that's why NASA's New Horizons mission in 2015 was such a big deal. The interplanetary space probe conducted a pioneering flyby of Pluto, traveling to within just 7,800 miles of the surface of the dwarf planet, which is almost 4 billion miles away from Earth. And the New Horizons probe took some pretty impressive high-resolution holiday snaps while it was out there, which for the first time revealed the stunning detail of the dwarf planet's surface, canyons, craters, and giant ice mountains stretching up to 11,000 feet. The Pluto truthers reckon that this was all just another silly hoax. They came up with simple evidence to prove that the images were cheap fakes. If they were fakes, they shouldn't be bloody cheap, because I'm sure New Horizons was expensive. If anything, and they didn't make New Horizons, and they just took 1% of the budget and spent it on faking some photos, those photos would be the best faked photos ever, because no one had ever spent so much money on faked photos before. A San Diego YouTuber who goes by the name of Crow went out into his back garden and took a few pictures of the planet Jupiter with his nifty telescopic camera, and these proved to be of higher clarity than the images NASA had taken of Pluto. His point was this: if he could take decent pictures of Jupiter from around 400 million miles away on his camera, then how come the images of Pluto taken from the massively expensive New Horizons probe weren't as high quality when the probe was supposedly just 7,800 miles away from his subject? Crow was angry about the cloudy cover-up, and he said Crow doesn't understand science. This is silliness and games, and they are literally robbing the American people and then lying to them. The probe is probably sitting in a Hollywood soundstage somewhere. If you want to see the real Pluto, I'm sorry to say, you've got to go to Disneyland. Oh, Crow. Don't. Crow. Oh, Crow.
No, sir, I don't like it.
If, in response, Nigel Watson, the author of UFO Investigations Manual, stuck to the Disney them. What the f, Danny? What are you writing today? What does that even mean? Stuck to the Disney them when he stated? Stuck the Disney to them? Stuck them to the Disney? What is going on?
What the f? Wikipedia?
I was surprised to see how quickly people started saying the mission to Pluto and the pictures being sent back to Earth are fake. I think these ideas are just plain goofy. It's possible that Crow and his army of followers may have been missing the point on why NASA felt the need to launch the New Horizons probe in the first place, instead of just, say, taking images from the Hubble telescope. For starters, it's worth remembering that Jupiter is about 62 times bigger than Pluto. And while the Hubble telescope is able to take crystal clear images of distant glittering galaxies that are millions of light years away, it can't do the same with our relative neighbor Pluto because the dwarf planet is so small and so dim. That's why NASA spent the best part of 15 years developing the New Horizons project. Do you think people at NASA get annoyed by this, or do you think they're just smart and above it? Like, because I know Buzz Aldrin gets a bit pissed off when people are like, you didn't land on the moon. And I'll be like, yeah, rightfully so. Do you think the people at NASA, is like, when they're like making this New Horizons probe, they spend 15 years of their goddamn life after getting like 17 degrees from MIT. And then they're like working on this probe. So I was like, yeah, but you just did it in Photoshop, didn't you? You'd just be like, no. That's what they're like inside. Sam, do that thing with the smiley face, that meme with the smiley face, with the guy with the angry face behind it. It's like my favorite thing ever. That's what they're like. That's what the people at NASA are like with this. They're just like, no. And inside, The Pluto truthers might seem more credible if they could just agree why NASA was so determined to keep on telling porkies about Pluto. Some suggest that Pluto doesn't really exist at all, which I suppose could be the next logical downgrade after we've agreed that it's just a comet. Others suggest that NASA is covering up evidence of alien life or a hostile alien military base on the dwarf planet. Meanwhile, others reckon that the true purpose of the New Horizons mission had nothing to do with Pluto at all. It had been sent up to uncover more information about the secret planet X, which is almost certainly going to kill us all. Until they can agree on a semi-logical reason as to why NASA would find the time to piss about coming up with new hoaxes relating to Pluto, I think it's safe to assume for now that the weird cult can be regarded as nothing more than a Mickey Mouse operation. Ba-da-bum-bum. What a bunch of clowns. On a wing and a prayer. We often speculate about the existence of alien life forms hovering in the sky above us or drunkenly crashing their craft in the remote spots of Mexico. Seems likely. Sorry, New Mexico. Obviously, New Mexico. Not Old Mexico. Lame, they never get any aliens there. Because they never get any aliens anywhere, because they haven't come to Earth. But what if these otherworldly beings are not necessarily just aliens from another planet? What if they're angels sent from heaven to carry out a bit of routine maintenance and occasionally stop us from blowing ourselves up? Sounds realistic, doesn't it, Sam? Sounds realistic. Oh, shit.
It's an angel. It's an angel. It's an angel.
It's a Gundam.
It's an angel.
It's an angel.
Angel, it's
a group of cosmonauts is why a fucking heaven alien shit. A group of cosmonauts is said to have experienced 2 separate encounters with these guardian angels in 1984. But would you believe it? The Soviet Union tried to bury the story again. They really do seem determined to spoil all of the fun. The first 3 of these cosmonauts, Oleg Atkov, Vladimir Solovyov, and Leonid Kizim, were taking their turn as the sole occupants of the Salyut 7 space station, a low Earth orbit station focused on conducting scientific experiments. By the 155th day of their mission, the crew of Salyut 7 had been experiencing a string of system failures, and they were understandably alarmed when they suddenly noticed a blinding orange light bleeding into the interiors and bathing the whole of the station in an incandescent orange glow. The crew's first thought was that the station had caught on fire. That's gotta be scary. I'm watching that show, Invasion. It's a new show on Apple TV, I think. And it's like there's a scene where like a space station just gets, the side of it just gets ripped away and everyone gets blasted into space, and it's like, oh, that is intense. I don't know, that space shit always like, is like, ooh. I love it. I mean, not the idea of people getting ripped into space, but it's very exciting. After rubbing their eyes and reporting the situation to ground control, the men dashed over to the portals to try and ascertain the source of the light. Peering through the circular apertures, they saw Jesus. No, they were relieved to find that the station wasn't being licked by a giant fireball, but they also had to take a few deep breaths when they noticed that just outside, there were 7 giant angels hovering about in the vacuum of space. Just outside the Salyut 7. Yeah, this seems likely, except it's obviously a lie, and we're probably about to find out why. A crew later informed ground control that the figures were humanoid and about the size of a 747 jet, and they sported wings and halos. Apparently, they looked friendly and even took the time to smile at the crew before disappearing around after 10 very strange minutes. And look, I'm not against the idea of there being aliens out there, but what are the f***ing chances they look like biblical angels? What are the chances of that? It's basically zero. Following the incident, ground control very probably told the crew to calm down with the disco biscuits, and the cosmonauts later agreed they were probably all suffering from fatigue and had experienced a group hallucination. But 11 days later, the angels were back, and this time there were fresh witnesses. The crew had been I really love to see how this is explained. I mean, it just seems like, okay, so they really saw them. All of these people saw them and they reported on them. They're like reliable scientists. So how are we going to explain this away? Because I'm absolutely certain it will be explained away. The crew had been temporarily joined by 3 other cosmonauts who had rocked up purely to piss off the Americans, even though the official space race was supposed to have drifted into a less competitive and more cooperative chapter by now. NASA had recently announced astronaut Catherine D. Sullivan would shortly be the first ever woman to perform a spacewalk. So the Soviets quickly decided to cobble together a rushed mission which involved sending flight engineer Svetlana Savitskaya, already the second ever woman in space, over to Salyut 7, where she would engage in a 4-hour space walk and snatch another moment of glory from the capitalist space pigs. Those bastards. Whilst this visiting trio were on board Salyut 7, the blinding orange light returned to signal another visit from the colossal angelic beings who were just as cheerful as before. So, if this was a group hallucination, it was spreading fast. Also, can people in the same group hallucinate the same thing? That doesn't seem realistic at all. It'd be like what? It'd be like waking up and having the exact same dream as someone else. And being like, that would be, I mean, that's intense. That's really intense. We had exactly the same dream. And I mean, sure, if you'd been like, I don't know, whenever I go skiing, it's like always on that first day after skiing, you know, you're skiing all day. Always, when I go to sleep, I'll have a dream about skiing. Because you've been doing it all day. And it's like, you know, that's what you're dreaming of. So if you wake up and you're like, hey mate, did you dream of skiing last night? Be like, yeah, oh my god, we had the same dream. It's like, no, because you were skiing all day. But like, in it, like giant space aliens? Angels, sorry? Sorry, this is a really long way to say that group hallucinations are not a thing, are they? And now it seemed to affect cosmonauts who had just turned up and were unlikely to be suffering from fatigue. It's now believed by conspiracy theorists that when the cosmonauts came back to land, they were ordered by the Soviet Union never to speak publicly about this mass hallucination experienced out there in the stars. Otherwise, they might risk getting cut out of photographs, if you catch my drift. So yeah, getting cut out of photographs and being sent to the Gulag. Wait. It could just be that the Soviet Union wanted to get all the facts in place before they could brag to NASA that they were now the first state to have visited heaven. It's interesting to see how religious enthusiasts were quick to support the story, claiming that these space angels had probably intervened in the Cold War and had been busy putting the brakes on Armageddon before popping back home for a donut. Others claimed that this divine visitation was a sign from God that he was firmly on the side of the communists. This is so weird. Also, if they were told to shut the f about it, how do we know about this? However, the most notable thing about this story is that despite its coverage and support on conspiracy websites today, it doesn't appear to be backed up by any direct sources whatsoever. Oh, that's why! Because there are no direct sources! Wow, what a surprise! Claims that the story was reported at the time in both the Soviet Union press and the Washington Post appear to be entirely fabricated. Wow, what a surprise! Archived documents made public after the collapse of the Soviet Union fail to mention a single word about space angels. And the outlandish tale also seems to overlook 3 other cosmonauts who were on board at the time, having docked shortly before the visitors who were in a hurry to spacewalk into the record books, but don't appear to have witnessed the event. I suppose it could just have been their turn to do the washing up or something. This is most likely just a fictitious story spread by Western sources to make the Soviet space program look just a bit silly. Or maybe that's exactly what the Soviet Union wanted us to think. No. Angels wouldn't have been able to use their wings in space anyway, as the wings couldn't have generated any lift without the faintest whiff of air. They're angels, Danny. They can do what they want. And that's what casts doubt upon this whole story in my book. Big wow. Finally, cue the relief of Simon and Sam. Oh boy, yes, my legs are getting tired.
Thank you so much!
This is the second business plays that I've recorded in a row today. And it's very draining, like, recording these. I go to do other stuff and I'm like, oh man, it's those... Woo, I need to have a lie down. This one is not so much of a wild conspiracy, although it has naturally attracted outlandish theories from fevered imagination. However, the theories circling over the WOW signal have never been satisfactorily debunked, and to this day it remains the strongest candidate for a genuine alien radio transmission that mankind has ever detected. In the early 1970s, it was speculated that any kind of terrestrial radio transmission would most likely be communicated using a frequency of 1,420 megahertz, as this is the frequency at which hydrogen emits energy, and hydrogen is the most common element in the universe. By 1977, the Big Ear telescope at the Ohio State University was pointing at the sky and attempting to sniff out any potential messages transmitted on this frequency. Maybe something along the lines of, what do you want us to do with all these dead cosmonauts? Or can you keep the noise down a bit? It's gone 10 o'clock up here. To be more accurate, the Big Ear telescope wasn't really seeking or recording any specific messages. It was simply measuring the intensity variation of a signal and then expressing the result as a string of characters and endless reams of computer printouts. The intensity scale went from 1 to 9 and then through A to Z. All these printouts usually showed intensely insipid results at the extreme bottom range. Jerry R. Emmon was an astronomer who had volunteered to analyze all the computer printouts which were delivered to his office by bike messenger. Wow, the past was the worst, and also that sounds boring. And also, can't a computer do that? Even back in the day? His job was to spend hours sifting through printouts trying to spot any anomalies in the endless strings of 111211 that represented the quiet background time of the universe. It might sound like a dull way to spend a Friday morning, but it's still better than reading The Art of the Deal by Donald Trump. Like anything is. But then, one evening, in August 1977, Jerry spotted something which almost made him spill his banana Nesquik all over the office carpet. Lurking among all the 1s and 2s and maybe even the occasional 3, he spotted a string of characters which appeared to represent a radio transmission that was 30 times louder than the usual background whispers of deep space. The string of digits that had been spat out on the paper read 6EQUJ5. Oh my god, the past was the worst. Today you'd just be like, yeah, let's all import that into Microsoft Word and just press Control F4. And if anything above a 3 is there, we'll see it as a 4. Or a 5. Or a 6. We'll find it. Oh my god. This guy wasted so much time. Poor guy. This potential transmission may have gone down in history as the 6EQUJ5 signal, if it weren't for the fact that Jerry was so gobsmacked by the sequence that he grabbed a red pen to circle the digits and then scrawled the word WOW right next to the circle. It's often reported that the WOW signal lasted 72 seconds, and whilst the sequence does cover this time frame, the reason is more to do with the limitations of Big Ear. The speed of the Earth's rotation meant that the telescope could only observe any fixed point for a maximum of 72 seconds. The signal came from somewhere in the direction of the constellation Sagittarius, close to the M55 globular cluster, although it was impossible to get a grip on the precise location, and despite desperate attempts over the next few decades to pick up a repeat broadcast, the WOW signal has never been heard again, and we never understood the origin of the mysterious transmission. One of the biggest reasons why alien hunters get so excited about the WOW signal is simply because of that frequency of 1,420 megahertz at which it was detected. Whereas natural emissions from the planets cover a broad spectrum of frequencies, the pulse of the signal was confined to a specific narrow range at which it was speculated that extraterrestrials are most likely to use. Yeah, but if you're only monitoring that narrow range, then that's all you're going to pick up. Right? Even so, bearing in mind that the nearest star was about 250 light years away, the aliens behind this message must have had bigger brains than we ever dare imagine, as they would have needed to build an almost impossibly powerful transmitter. But could there be any other explanation behind this astonishing transmission? Well, yes. Loads of them, in fact.
So that was a fucking lie.
It could have been an example of a fast radio burst. All of these irregular bursts of radio have equally enigmatic origins. They usually only last milliseconds. It could be an Earth-based transmission which simply got bounced back from a chunk of space debris. It could have been a secret spy satellite, or it could have just been a glitch in the Big Ear telescope or the 1970s IBM computer that was expressing these signals. Yeah, all of these are just more likely, aren't they? Every single one. Every single one is more likely. In 2017, a Florida scientist felt confident that it finally cracked the mystery after almost 40 years. Antonio Paris reckons that the WOW signal was the result of using radio waves emitted from the gases of a comet called 266P Christiansen, which just happened to be in the same rough area, but wouldn't have been known about at the time, as it wasn't discovered until 2006. For a while, Antonia's theory was widely reported as the most likely answer, but it has since been discredited by astronomers. A comet wouldn't have emitted so strongly at the frequency of 1,420 megahertz, and it wouldn't have escaped Big Ear's field of vision so quickly and abruptly. So we would have heard a lot more of a signal than that brief 72-second burst. We may never get to hear a definitive explanation. I'd put a fiver on the dodgy equipment theory. I like the bouncing back off some space debris theory. These all sound fairly, realistic. I mean, more realistic than a super powerful alien transmitter. Very far away.
Yeah, well, that's just like your opinion, man.
But we should be thankful that the WOW signal was named after the reaction from such a reserved and mild-mannered astronomer. Somewhere on a parallel Earth in a haunted mirror universe, the 6EQUJ5 signal has been detected by the overexcitable Professor Soapbeard, and even today the inhabitants are fiercely debating the true origins of the Jesus Christ on a popsicle signal. Yes! This has been an episode of Brain Blaze. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed it, little round of applause. Yes, you're welcome. Thank you. Danny, Sam, admirable work. Why don't you purchase some merch at purchasethemerch.co? And thank you for watching. Woo! Shit. Wow. Oh my god. Woo, that was a good one. Oh, goddamn. Oh. Okay. We're back.
Holy fuck knuckles, I am high as a kite right now.